Welcome back to What She Said with Christine Bentley and Sharon Caddy.
And we are so happy to have you joining us, and hopefully you are, well, maybe cutting out a little sugar after the Easter weekend.
Oh.
I was so good.
I feel poisoned by it, actually.
Oh, my goodness.
There's just too much chocolate and dessert and just there's sweet stuff everywhere for the whole week leading up.
So, but if you did kind of go a little, I posted something on my Facebook yesterday that said, oh, I feel fat or whatever. I had eggs for breakfast, and someone says scrambled. They go, no, Cadbury. But so to talk about all of this stuff, we are joined now by nutrition and wellness expert Adele Tevlin. Great to have you here.
Great to meet you as well. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, Foodie Foods frozen entrees are made with high-quality, natural, non-modified, local whole foods and cooked using state-of-the-art techniques. With Foodie, you get flavors from around the world at your fingertips from freezer to plate in 15 minutes. Foodie, globally inspired and locally sourced. For more, go online to Foodie, and by Foodie, we're saying FUDI.ca.
Yes.
So, how do we get the sugar out of our system? I mean, this is
$1 million question.
Because
it's everywhere.
There is a relationship, though, that is between sugar and our brain.
Absolutely. So sugar is actually considered one of the most potent drugs out there. It's actually considered second highest drug after heroin. There was actually studies done that an Oreo cookie has more of an addictive effect than cocaine, to be honest.
And what about, where does nicotine figure in there?
Nicotine's a lot easier to kick than sugar, to be honest, because the truth is sugar is everywhere. So you think it's not just even in cookies or something as obvious, but it's in a lot of like healthy foods, like organic crackers. If you look at the first three ingredients in something like a cracker, it's sugar, fat, and salt. And those three ingredients together are actually what makes sugar so addictive. So those are actually called hyperpalatable foods. So think about like any food that you crave, and it's got a combination of sugar, fat, and salt.
So let me ask you, I remember having a girlfriend who drank 12 Cokes a day. And everybody just assumed
she lied.
But she was addicted in high school. And everybody assumed it was the caffeine maybe. But you're saying it was probably the sugar.
Well, it's 100% the sugar. I mean, so if you think about, like, this is what research has really shown us about sugar, that sugar doesn't normally occur in food on its own. It's that combination of sugar and fat and salt. Something like even Coke would have a combination of like some salt and some sugar. Something like, a donut, a cookie, a cracker. And that's why even a lot of my clients are like, well, I bought these organic, healthy crackers. And I'm like, well, read the ingredients. They're actually sugar, fat, and salt. And they're like, I can't just eat one. I'm like, well, that's why, right?
But could you, Adele, realistically completely give up sugar?
No. And I think this is where people go a little bit like, I'm having no sugar. And the reality is you're going to find sugar in fruit or naturally occurring things. But sugar from fructose is very different than the combination of sugar from processed foods that are that combination is really tricky. They call it the deadly trio. It's actually why we have such an obesity epidemic.
So when we consume sugar, what is going on with our brain?
Well, sugar has the same dopamine response that a drug would. So that circuit that you have in your brain called the reward circuit it's triggered in the same way that if you had nicotine, alcohol, cocaine, or any kind of drug.
So when you've consumed sugar and it's doing what it's doing, and then a few hours later, would it have that same effect then that you crave it again?
So exactly. So you have a hit of, let's call it a hit of sugar, cookie, or Easter eggs, like, right after Easter. And you have an influx of this hormone called dopamine, which makes us feel immediately very good. It also reminds us of childhood memories where like sugar was associated with really happy things. And so you have this kind of feedback loop of, you have sugar, you get this high, then you have a low, and then you need more sugar. Right. Very similar to nicotine or any other drug.
Well, that's in the short term then. But if you are someone who is just sugar addicted and constantly, and I know many, I was one.
Recovering sugar
What
addict.
can that do to you, though, in the longer term? I mean, if it is that kind of substance, clearly it does leave its effect.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it could lead to obesity and obviously, weight gain. But more than anything, sugar is also toxic. So we also know there's a link between sugar and cancer because it takes quite a toxic environment to have that kind of reaction. So sugar can have a lot of effect on your health, negative effect on your health.
So if you want to start taking steps to reducing or maybe as close to eliminating as we can in our society.
Yeah.
What's the wise way to do it? Because I know when I've cut it off, and it sounds goofy with sugar, but cold turkey, I mean, I get headaches.
Yeah.
I don't feel well.
It's a total detox. I mean, some people would argue and say there's two thoughts. One is get rid of it altogether because you want to go on a detox, kind of like with smoking. Others would say just cut out the real obvious processed sugar in your life. So people that, I always find it crazy that people still drink a lot of pop.
I know.
Like a lot. So something like as obvious as pop, or again, the combination of sugar, fat, and salt. So cookies, chocolate, all that kind of stuff that has real processed sugar in it. And try to mitigate that with more natural fruit, or sugars like fruit.
Well, the fact is, wine has sugar.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not natural sugar.
Well, it's,
So if you were going to do that, you'd have to give up wine.
Well, alcohol is a huge source of sugar because people don't realize how much sugar is actually in alcohol. So, giving up wine. But I wouldn't, I'm not an extremist in my philosophy. I don't necessarily think like you can cut out everything. But I do think you can start with the obvious things in your life that are very high in sugar.
Maybe we should tell our listeners, because I don't fully understand, what organs are hurt and damaged by excess sugar.
Yeah, so the pancreas and the liver. So insulin is secreted in the pancreas. So when you have a lot of sugar in your diet, you have sugar that's circulating in your bloodstream that doesn't know how to be processed, which leads to insulin resistance and diabetes. So your pancreas is overworked. And then your liver. Your liver is your most important organ in your body. If you have a liver that's overburdened, it's very hard to detoxify. And so when you have a lot of sugar in your system and in your liver, it's very hard for your liver to do its job. So that's why we have so many people that have overburdened livers, and that's why detoxes are actually so helpful because of that.
For women of my age group, when you're dealing with things like menopause and hormones are playing a factor, I've noticed by cutting... I've cut sugar out as much as I can. Yeah. And I notice a difference.
Absolutely. Because the way you eat has an effect on your hormones. Sugar is a hormone. Insulin's a hormone. So that's why I always say to people, like, when they go off on a little bit of a sugar detox, they find their mood shifts. Initially, it's not very good. But eventually, you actually have a more stable mood because you're eating a lot more balanced. That sugar high and low is very tumultuous on your mood as well.
Right.
And women who are in menopause and already have hormonal kind of imbalances, this just makes it worse.
Does the sugar and fruit factor into this?
Again, this is one of those areas where I don't think so. I mean, if you ate eight bananas a day, yes, it would.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, exactly. But if you have like low glycemic fruit, like berries and apples and pears, then no, I don't think so.
What do you suggest for people that want to cut out sugar, but still? There are people that tend toward, just as some people tend towards salt, people tend towards sweet.
Yes.
To retain sweetness in your diet without necessarily going there.
Yes. How would you retain it? I think, like you said, with fruit. Fruit's a great way to do it. I mean, I actually don't think that, as you were talking about, Christine, like that red wine is so bad. I actually
I don't think it's bad at all.
No, I think having a glass, actually, there's a lot of studies that show having a glass of red wine in the evening with your meal can actually decrease your wanting for sugar.
Seriously?
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah. Well, think about Europeans. They don't have an obesity epidemic because they drink a glass of wine with their meal. The key is to not drink alcohol in an empty stomach because your blood sugar will spike and drop very rapidly.
The other thing about Europeans, though, that I notice is they don't snack. You
No.
don't see children walking down the
No.
street holding a bag of chips or holding a chocolate
No.
bar. They eat meals,
yeah.
where it's a family thing, it's social, it's all about...
They eat meals. They eat smaller quantities of real food with real fat in it. They're not afraid of fat because the more you reduce the fat, the more you add sugar. That's why that low-fat craze in the 80s led to such an obesity epidemic, right? Because if you buy a low-fat muffin, what do you think they have to put in it to make it taste good?
Yeah.
Sugar. So Europeans eat full-fat milk, full-fat dairy, all that kind of stuff. Their meals are a lot smaller. They walk a lot. And they drink alcohol with their food as opposed to before meals.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
But when
too.
I've been over in parts of Europe, I also know that we sit down for tea, which was kind of a snack.
Yeah.
But it was a controlled kind of, it was just lovely. It kind of tempered the hunger before dinner. That's all it did.
Yeah, and it's portion controlled.
Yes.
They don't eat North Americans eat crazy portions.
Oh, yeah.
No. Even here.
No, we'd have a biscuit and a cup of tea, and it was lovely.
Not a bag of Oreos.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
Yeah, that's a difference.
Yeah, there's no supersizing.
No, exactly.
And that's something I guess, the advertising industry, the manufacturing industry has really done to us over decades. And we have to sort of reteach ourselves what portions are.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the biggest jobs of a nutritionist and something in my role is showing people what a portion size looks like. You'd be surprised. Most people underestimate their portions. So I'll say, like, how much chicken did you eat? And they'll think it's 4 ounces. It's really 7, or how much rice did you eat? They think it's half a cup. It's 2 cups. And so really showing people portion sizes is really important.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest stumbling block for most people. When you say a handful, you're not saying a handful.
Like how big
like
is this hand?
Yeah,
exactly.
You're talking about
a closed handful. I say.
So
usually.
you literally have to say to people, 4 ounces and measure it. Get a scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a pain, but that is the way to learn. And then until you get to a point visually, and I know people. Sharon, you've done it too, where you say no. I know what it looks
That's
like.
too big. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the thing is, and I always say this to people, like, your stomach's a muscle. It will stretch and it will contract. So if you, like, after Easter is a great example, like after Thanksgiving, you eat this enormous meal and then you try to scale back and eat normal portions. You're kind of hungry. You've got that gap for a few days, you know what I mean? But then it takes a little while for your stomach to shrink again. But you can really teach yourself the right amount of food.
We can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I do the opposite. If I overeat on a holiday like this, my stomach does not want any food.
Yes.
It's like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
Don't
You're lucky.
feed me. And then by, in a couple of days, I'll be right back to normal.
Yeah.
But I'm not hungry at all.
You're lucky, though. Some people, it really stimulates them to want to eat a lot more. So you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah. I don't know. I still ate all that food.
Okay.
Well, thanks for all the information
Thank
and
you
the
so
tips,
much.
and hopefully
Thanks.
everybody gets through the
Absolutely.
post-Easter sugar downfall. It's good.
Thanks for having me.
That's great. And remember, Foodie, globally inspired, locally sourced. For more information, go to foodie.ca. That's FUDI.ca.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.